Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Joining me tonight is Eric LaMontagne, who's acting as guest host.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Eric is Executive Director for Campaign for Vermont, and we're in partnership together, so here we are. And I have a very special guest tonight. I'm very excited to bring this show to you because Valerie Mullin, who is also running as a Republican for Addison 4, which keeps you very busy, but she is also a volunteer at the Champlain Valley Canine Rescue. And I've watched her on Facebook with these dogs, and I just think, especially now that they're so involved in the rescuing the hurricane dogs
yes.
from South Carolina and North Carolina
Yes.
mostly. So anyway, welcome very much.
Thank you so much.
So glad to have you here. So maybe a little background yourself. I've sort of given away that you're running, but
I am. I'm running for Vermont State House. I have a business. My husband is a first responder, career firefighter. I have a very full life, but there are things that are important in life. And for me, my husband saves people and I save dogs.
There you go. Oh, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about that. I don't even know how. I'd have a whole household. I wouldn't be able to give them up. I would fall in love with all of them.
Well, here's the thing, though. If I didn't give them up, and then I couldn't save any more.
That's good.
So
point.
that's what
Good
gives me hope.
motivation.
It's not the ones that leave that haunt me. It's the ones that I have to leave behind that I can't save that haunt me.
Oh dear. Oh my God, this is gonna be a sad show. Yes.
We need a box of tissues out here. Champlain Valley Canine Rescue
Yes.
is the name of the organization.
Yes.
Give us a brief rundown about the organization, what it does, and your role with them.
Well, Tammy Hall, my rescue partner from Charlotte, started this rescue as a small dog rescue. Mm-hmm. And her heart is still with the small dogs. And I've done this for quite a while, but connected with Tammy because she's more local to me where she lives. It was just easier that way. And my role kind of grew that I pull the dogs that I want to be responsible for, and then she pulls the dogs that she's responsible for. So on Facebook, we have two separate Facebook pages.
Yeah.
So there's Champlain Valley Canine Rescue on Facebook, and those are the dogs that she's pulled. And then Champlain.
When you say pulled from where?
Well, all right, so let me just finish this, and then I can tell you where.
Back it up.
So
You
yeah.
lost me.
So
Okay.
so Champlain Valley Rescue is my Facebook page, and so
Yep.
those are the dogs that I pull. So where we pull them from are kill shelters in South Carolina.
Oh.
And so there are dogs that literally. Well, let me back up. How do I? So we are Facebook friends, and social media can be used for good things.
Yes, it can. I've
And so
wanted to run over to your place more than once.
So social media. So I have great Facebook connections down there.
Right.
And they'll say to me, "Hey, Valerie, this is a really good dog." And what we mean by a good dog, all dogs are good dogs, but we want dogs that are adoptable.
Right.
And there are dogs that have been challenges to adopt. Don't get me wrong. But we can't have that be all of them because these are just dogs in my house. Like we're not it's not like a pound that you go and there's,
Right.
we are a home-based foster.
Uh-huh.
So we can only save as much as we have room for in our homes.
Which would be, what number would that be?
Well, it depends. Like for instance, a mama with her little puppies that don't even have their eyes open, that could be, 10 dogs, and that sounds like a lot,
Right,
but really
they're in a
it's
box.
Exactly. So it varies depending on the need, and the
Okay.
need is great, and we can only save as many as we have home fosters for.
How many? And these are all volunteers, right?
Absolutely.
So how many home fosters do you have?
Not enough.
Not enough. Well, that's
and
a good answer. Pay attention.
not enough. We can't. And like I have a black lab. I think she's a year and a half old. That I was able to pull. And the black ones touch my heart the most because there's something called black dog syndrome that for some reason they're not adopted as fast.
My dog is all black. I love her.
And so they touch my heart. I'm always one for the underdog.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah,
But
really.
anyway, and so I have South Carolina fosters that will go get them from the shelter before there's times that
Right.
they were heading in the back room to be put down.
Oh my word.
And they'll go get them and foster them until our transport, and we have a transport twice a week.
Wow.
And I'm sorry if I do a plug on the transport. So the transport comes up, and all these dogs, these beautiful dogs, all are waiting for somebody to foster them. But this next transport we have going back, we're collecting things for the shelters down there in South Carolina. And the list is on my Champlain Valley Rescue Facebook page of what we need. And you don't have to go out and buy anything. It could be used towels that are clean. They need them for the shelters. Used crates, because they're rescuing dogs from flooded areas and they're bringing them places and there's not enough crates. And so these things can be used that we have on the list. Some of them, obviously, food, but there's things that any family, I bet, would be able to donate and feel like they're doing something, and they're going to go right back to the shelters that are in need.
So so that's North Carolina and South Carolina.
Yes.
And been through because of the hurricane. Before the hurricane, were all these dogs mostly from Vermont or surrounding other states? Or
That I know, we've always pulled them from these two areas because we have our systems in place.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the South Carolina fosters are the vital link. I mean, there's volunteers in every part of the link.
Wow.
And their paycheck, just like my paycheck, is out of the heart. That they get, I take a picture of the forever family and make sure that they get that too, because that's why we do this. There's so many heartbreaking stories, and that's what we have, is those paychecks of the heart to see the happy family.
You have a special story that we have to make sure we have time for on Moses. Yeah.
Moses.
Maybe we can do it right now. Make sure we have time for it. Do you want to talk about Moses? And we're putting a picture of Moses up at the end of the show.
All right. So
you're going to make me cry. Get those tissues.
So Brantley was this little 2-year-old, blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy down in South Carolina. And his stepfather and mother mutilated and murdered him. And little puppy Moses was by his body, trying to keep it warm when the police arrived. And so Moses was brought to the kill shelter. And the parents were brought to prison, to jail. And the 2 other children that were remaining in the home were put in Child Protective Services. Right. I was already full. My husband, I'm so grateful he loves me and puts up with the dogs, but I was not letting Moses going down. And so Moses is coming, honey. And when I told him the story, of course, he understood. And I didn't have a foster for Moses, but I had hope. And John Flowers with Addison Independent ran a story.
Nice.
And that was nice.
A great story, right.
And we found a foster for Moses, and they ended up adopting him. Nice. And what gives me satisfaction is knowing that Moses has a big sister, a doggy sister, that he plays with every day on a farm and runs and no fence and whatever. And the 2 parents are locked up hopefully for a long time.
Right.
So Moses is going to live a better life.
You know what? I bet he knows he's in a good place. I took somebody's dog, a rescue dog, and they just know. I think within a half hour being in a forever home, they're like, "Hey, this is good." And they're very grateful. You can tell.
Well, when I got that's the system that I got my dog through. I was a little bit coerced. I think I was on a list of people who maybe kind of sort of one day could potentially think about fostering, and I one day got an email saying with a picture of a dog, so I called them up and they said, yeah, this dog, it's in South Carolina and they're going to euthanize it in 3 hours, and you're the last person on our list to foster it. And that's, I said yes, but I remember when we picked her up from the transport, it was exactly what you said, where it was a van at 4 o'clock in the morning in that abandoned Kmart on Shelburne Road, and the dog came out of the crate and just ran straight to us. And they just knew.
Right.
She just knew, and then we ended up failing miserably as fosters.
Now, you have to explain to people that's a good thing. Foster fail means you love them so much, they're not fosters, they're forevers.
Exactly. So one of the most challenging and I'm sure probably heart-wrenching parts of your job with this must be the pool of dogs that you could pull is way more than the capacity to do so. So how do you choose which dogs to pull and balance that adoptability factor with the want to just take them all and save them all?
Well, there's 2 ways. So for instance, right now I have somebody looking for a blue heeler. So I can go to my Facebook friends down there and say, listen, who has a blue heeler, what shelter down there, and then I can send them pictures. Mm-hmm. But then the other part of it is I can, and all of the dogs that we pull, we try to make sure that they are dog friendly because they're in homes. And so we need to make sure that they go, they mesh.
Right.
And it's, it's a small family here at this house, and so we want to make sure that happens. And so they go and they might point dogs to me, but also I get emails and Facebook messages and say, hey, this is one that's real special. Do you have room?
And what makes them ready for adoption? I mean, what is that magic list that checks off and go, you're ready, young man or young lady?
Well, I think one of the good things about our group is that because they've been in homes, we know. And I let the people know everything because there should be no surprises. Everything I know. In other words, I don't know it all, but if they've lived with me for a week, a month, I know what to share with them. And I'm kind of like a matchmaker. There's that TV show, Matchmaker Millionaire. So when someone says, this is the kind of dog I'm looking for, I encourage them not to go by looks or sometimes even breed, but by personalities.
Right.
And so I'll say, well, these are the two dogs that maybe meet your requirements, and why don't you meet them? And so once they fill out an application, they can adopt any dog that we have for adoption.
And do you check them out? Do you go to their homes?
Oh, absolutely.
You go to their homes? And
we have references and we do vet checks. And one of the things, if I'm elected for Vermont State House,
listen to this. I didn't know this.
Is that right now there's no animal abuse registry. Like, for instance, if somebody, and it takes a lot to be prosecuted for animal abuse.
Right.
There's people that should be that aren't, but very seldom are they prosecuted and shouldn't have been, in my opinion, being an animal lover. And so there's no place for me to go and see if they had abused animals, anywhere. There's no place for me to check.
That should be your very first bill. I'm sure it would pass. I can't imagine the state. I just don't think they know that. But if you've abused animals in the past, you should not even be allowed to be near them.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Because we talked about Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. There's a fine line between people who will abuse a helpless animal and people who will abuse a helpless child. It's the same feeling of power and whatever whatever feelings they get from this. But, right? Think about that.
Yeah, that control over something.
Yeah, that's helpless and makes you feel like a big man or woman or whatever. So, wow, I hope that bill goes through.
Yeah, and back to the South Carolina connections, they might have been in their foster home for two weeks or more so if they've needed heartworm treatment or so on. And so I can say to these people with authenticity, I think it's going to be a great match. And so that trust needs to go both ways, that we're not going to match them with a dog that's not going to work for them, because if it doesn't work, that comes back to us. The dog comes back to us. They have that in their agreement when they adopt from us. And so we want it to be a match the first time.
Is it cost to adopt?
Absolutely, yes.
Because I know I paid
most all of our dogs are $375, and but they come with all their vetting, all their shots. It cost us, the transport is very expensive to get them here, and spay and neuter. And if they're too young for spay and neuter, then we give them like a gift certificate.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like free or included in the cost.
Do they have the chips in them?
Some do and some don't. It depends on which shelter we pull from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we try to. But at the same time, we're trying to keep it. $375 is not cheap, and I agree, it's not. At the same time, I like to think that they're getting value. They're getting dogs that are just from a cute picture, and you just hope it's a match. Right.
Mine was about the same. It came from the animal shelter here, and she had a chip, and I got 10 free lessons, training lessons, and Mom failed. I just want to go on record. The dog was fine. It was Mom that failed. And then all the spay neutering that you said, and I thought it was okay, because some dogs, if you're looking for pedigrees and stuff, you can get some additional zeros on that end.
Absolutely.
So I thought my $350 was good deal.
Well, and there are dogs, like for instance, we had one that was heartworm positive. The rescue paid $600 for that to be not heartworm positive at the end. Right. And so one vet bill can set you back a lot. There's very little cushion in there. And by the way, us fosters, I don't even take money for cleaning supplies. I mean, I do this because I love it and I think it's the right thing to do. We make zero money. So I don't hope anybody ever thinks, well, we're in it for the money, because that's certainly not the case.
And what about the vets? Do you have volunteer vets, or do they?
No, unfortunately.
They just go and charge their normal amount?
Well, we do have 2 vets, and if people want to know who those vets are, message me on Facebook, I'll let you know. So it doesn't cost us for the visit, but everything that we do there does cost.
Oh, sure.
So all the procedures and tests and medication, it's not inexpensive. One animal can add up a lot of zeros.
And I know we would probably take out a second mortgage for ours. So it's whatever, do whatever. We watch all those dog shows, and
I know, they're part of our families in Vermont.
Yeah, they are.
So if somebody's looking to expand their family and thinking about fostering, what do you need to do to qualify as a foster? Do you provide training for those folks? What does that look like?
Fostering means that you love the dog like you'd love your own. And so we give them all the guidance they want. So some people don't want it. In other words, they don't want to be micromanaged, which is what I was. If you don't trust me as a foster, then maybe I shouldn't be fostering. But they fill out an application like they were going to adopt, and then they just write foster instead. What's nice about fostering is you have first choice whether you want to keep that dog or not. And so that's an opportunity to kind of see if that dog is the fit for your family. But there's times that Tammy has called me and said, someone's coming over this afternoon, are you going to be home to come get the dog? And so if it's a match, you want to make sure and let us know right away, because otherwise we want that dog to be in the forever home as quickly as possible.
Right, because then you can bring another dog and put them another dog in that foster home.
And so fostering really saves more than one dog. It saves the dog that we were able to pull and that they're fostering, but it also saves the dog that now there's room for in the shelter down in South Carolina, so that it doesn't go over capacity and they have to do put downs. One of the shelters that we pull from, in one day got over 100 dogs, and the capacity is something like 40 something.
Oh, dear.
It wasn't even the hurricane. Sometimes down there, it could be a 3-day holiday and they don't want to worry about the dog for the 3-day holiday, and so they just give it up and they'll get another one when they get back. And so there'll be lines.
Those people shouldn't be allowed.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, seriously.
I'll never forget driving through South Carolina at one point in college, and we stopped at a rest area and a truck pulled up and put a box on the side of the road and drove off, and we went over and looked, and there was 4 dogs in this box, and they just pulled up, dropped it off. So we went in and we told somebody in the facility, and they said, oh yeah, it happens all the time.
And I'm not disparaging everybody from North and South Carolina, don't get me wrong. I'm just, this is what happens, and this is what I try to do to make my part to be better.
And I know because I'm watching all these shows on TV, there's certain places where they will drop the dogs off. They're known drop-off areas, so people like Valerie will know to go there to pick them up and bring them somewhere. So it's like a vicious cycle.
I've seen videos of it, and the dog just sits there for days. Just sits there waiting for them to come back. It's heartbreaking.
And but they know when they're being rescued, because they just perk up and lick the rescuer and carry on, and they're so smart. They really
Sometimes
do know.
we adopt dogs, but most often they adopt us.
I know. Well, I told Valerie when I got Coco, they put me in a huge room and it was padded, and they let her loose at the end, the farthest end, and she, what you're talking about, beeline right to me, sat on my lap, and I'm like, oh man,
got me a dog.
This is it. I guess you picked me.
So to just wrap up on the fostering thing for a second, could you say something if there's folks out there who are interested in fostering? Is there something that you can say to them that would assuage some concerns they had and make it more something they could feel more comfortable jumping into? Well,
we know things about the dogs because of our South Carolina connections. And we also, if it doesn't work out, we will take the dog back or trade it out for one that we've done that before that fits the home dynamics better.
Especially if they have kids, I would think.
Absolutely, we need to,
like
safety
cats,
is the first, absolutely the first priority, and cats. But a lot of that's already been tested down in the South. So we don't have that as much as maybe other places might.
Is it considered right now an emergency? I mean, it must be at an emergency level. This must be high red alert area.
Absolutely. There's just not enough. There's just not enough. And we'll even provide the food for the foster, so there's no cost to them except maybe the cleaning supplies. So it's not costing them anything. And the great thing is people want to help. Yeah. So if you were to say today I want to foster, you could put up on social media, hey, listen, I'm going to foster. Like I need a crate. Can somebody let me borrow a crate? People, they step forward. Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, this really pulls at your heartstrings, so people will help. And I want you to talk about that list that's on your Facebook. People really need to check that out.
Well, there's things, food and crates so that they can put dogs that have been rescued in crates, sheets and towels and things that you might have around the house. They don't have to be new. The list is there. I can't remember, but it's all there written down.
Very thorough.
So it can be things that are already in your house, or it can be things. One Girl Scout troop in Charlotte went and they all collected some money and they brought the things, and so it's really a good thing.
That's great.
And one more thing about kids. My son was able to use this on his college resume, that he grew up in a foster home. I think it's a really good thing for kids to learn the world does not revolve around them.
Right.
This is the world that we live in, that we want to give to. And so children will step up and know that, you did something for someone else by feeding the dog that wasn't your dog.
Right.
And so it's a really good thing. It brings families together for projects like this.
These dogs must be so totally traumatized. I mean, how, like Eric was talking about, how do you train somebody, a dog? It's just love, or giving them time or space, or how do you get taught to teach to get through to a traumatized dog?
Let me tell you about Chicha. So Chicha was in the shelter with her head in the corner. And it took me about half an hour to get her into the car, because I don't want to just pick her up and bring her.
Right.
So the trust issue was there. It took me about a half an hour to get her into the house, because I just kind of reached back and let her smell me and get trust and whatever. So I brought her into the house, and my husband comes home from work, and Chicha was like, "Oh, Daddy, you're home. I've been waiting for you for." I mean, it is so fast, because they know where they're safe.
Yep.
And I have a balanced pack. So the other dogs.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. What is that? A balanced pack?
Well, I have a dominant male. I have a submissive female.
I see.
A pack of dogs. My three dogs that I have. And so those dogs teach other dogs, this is a safe place, and this is what we do. These are the rules of the house. Right. My rules are they're not on the furniture. Right. Otherwise, I'd be like, So that they learn. This is the dog bed. Oh, this is where the dog toys are. They learn from each other, and that to me is the best therapy for dogs.
Do you know, when Cole Hudson died, I was a legislator in the legislature for years and years. He had this big old dog, 14 years old. Oh. And it's a long story, but I wound up taking her home with me. And I called her vet, and I said, she's lived with Cola all her life, on top of this mountain. What's she going to do when she gets in my house? The vet goes to me, Pat, it's a dog. Bring it home, set the rules, and that's it. I said, really? She goes, yep, and he was right. Just here's the rules, dog, and the dog adjusted, and we lived happily ever after.
They're so forgiving.
Yeah.
They're so forgiving. And at my house, I need to be the alpha. I'm the alpha mama dog, and that way there's no fighting to figure out who the alpha is, because otherwise they're
looking at her.
They'll figure out, well, if she's not going to be the one, then we'll try to figure out amongst ourselves who is. Right. There is no question.
Right.
And when I've gone door knocking, it's really kind of funny, because dogs know that I'm a good dog person. So they react to me in a different way than maybe a total stranger.
That's great.
It's really fun.
That's great. So we have a few more minutes left, Valerie. Do you have any more questions, Eric? Or
what is your, I guess, if there's one thing that you can tell people there's so many people care about dogs. They don't necessarily have the capacity to bring a dog or another dog into their life. What can they do to continue to still help?
What they can do is share our Facebook pages, because it's amazing how we can connect with other friends and learn, I didn't know your dog. Friends of friends of friends have adopted.
Right.
And so that's how spreading the word. We can't do it all, but we could all do something.
That's
and just sharing that, the Champlain Valley
Rescue. Of course, there's
Rescue.
Always funding.
Well, there's always funding, and that, yes, absolutely.
That's sort of nobody likes to talk about, but there is money.
Well, and that's on the list if people want to donate,
Yep.
and that's absolutely, the easiest way.
Right.
But time is precious too, and so I have a family that lives close by, and they come at least once a week and come play with the dogs that I foster.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet neighborhood kids would be a big help coming in and
they just play and socializing, and that's very helpful too. So we can all do something, and it doesn't have to cost money.
So how bad is it down south? It's real. It sounds
about as bad as it can be. And just like with anything in life, I can't focus on what I can't do. I can only focus on what I can do, so that it keeps me from getting too discouraged and just giving up. So that's my motto, that everyone is a good save.
I give you a lot of credit. That's really kudos to you and to all the volunteers, because I think in this state, I know there are other organizations like yours around, right?
Right, and it's funny because people are like, well, that dog rescue, as long as the dog was rescued, that's all I care about.
Right.
And so, you know, there's always the next one that needs saving.
And I love that phrase, forever home.
Yes, that's what we want, them to have that forever
home. We all
home.
want that, don't we? Food on the table, a safe home, and somebody to pat our head. There you go.
So Champlain Valley Rescue and Champlain Valley Canine Rescue, both of those, if they could share those on Facebook.
And that's your
rescue partners.
Rescue partner.
Yes.
And how does that work? You have a friend that's just you bat ideas back and forth and help each other out.
Well, Tammy is the director of our, and I'm like kind of like the rescue volunteer coordinator. So we have different roles, but we work together to save as many as we can. And so she kind of focuses on the littles, I call them, and I have a soft heart for the big ones, the big lugs.
Should say, shout out to your husband too, I would think.
Well, both husbands, you know, both husbands. Thank goodness.
That's great.
It is when you have like little Buttons, who was pregnant. She was thrown in a store parking lot and barely made it to Vermont before giving birth. And you know, at 2 a.m, Buttons is barking, and Rob's like, I said, Rob, I think it's time. And he's like, well, why do you think that? Well, a woman knows these things, Rob. So you know,
look of help in her eyes.
Yeah. So you know, it's not convenient. We can't maybe go all day to some place because we need to get back for the dogs, but it's worth it.
Yep. Yeah, that's always the thing. We went to a fair yesterday in Maine, and we had to get back. Why?
Because of the dog.
Because of the dog. Valerie, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm sure you enjoyed this as much as I did. I'm probably going to go home and adopt or something. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the soundbites.